Look, I need to tell you something that's going to sound insane, but stay with me here. There's a solid chance that if you're making six figures right now, like genuinely earning $100,000 a year, you're probably living like someone who made 40 grand back in 2010. And I know what you're thinking, Nash, that's ridiculous. $100,000 is still $100,000. Except it's not. Not even close. And if you've been feeling like you're doing everything right financially, but somehow still living paycheck to paycheck, this might be the most important video you watch all year. My name is Nash, and I spend way too much time thinking about why the American middle class feels like it's being squeezed from every possible direction. If you're someone who makes decent money, does all the responsible things, saves where you can, but still feels broke at the end of the month, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up because we're about to break down exactly why six figures doesn't hit the same way it used to. So here's the thing. When most people think about inflation, they picture milk getting more expensive or gas prices going up. And sure, those things matter, but that's surface level stuff. The real damage, the thing that's absolutely gutting the purchasing power of your salary, is happening in categories that eat up the biggest chunks of your budget. We're talking about housing, healthcare, childcare, education, and insurance. These aren't luxuries. These are the non-negotiables that you literally cannot avoid if you want to live a normal, middle-class American life. Let me show you what I mean with actual numbers, because this is where it gets really uncomfortable. The median home price in the United States right now is hovering around $620,000. Back in 2010, it was about $220,000. That's not a typo. Housing has basically tripled while wages have barely budged. Now look, if you're making $100,000 a year and you want to buy a house following the traditional 30% rule, where you don't spend more than 30% of your income on housing, you can afford about $2,500 a month for your mortgage. Run that through a mortgage calculator with today's interest rates sitting somewhere between 6 and 7%, and you're looking at a house worth maybe $400,000. But remember, the median is $620, so right off the bat, the average American home is completely out of reach for someone making six figures. You're already priced out of average. And this is just housing. Let's talk healthcare for a second, because this one makes me genuinely angry. The average family health insurance premium is now over $23,000 a year, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. Even if your employer covers most of that, you're still probably paying $4,000 to $6,000 out of pocket annually just for premiums, not even counting deductibles, copays, or that fun thing where insurance just decides they're not going to cover something. So right there, that's another 5% of your $100,000 gone before you even get sick. Now you might be thinking, okay Nash, but people in 2010 had expenses too. It's not like life was free back then. You're absolutely right, but here's what most people don't realize. The ratio has completely flipped. In 2010, if you made $100,000, you were legitimately upper middle class in most American cities. You could buy a nice house, save for retirement, take a vacation, and still have breathing room. That same $100,000 today, you're squarely middle class, and in expensive metros like New York, San Francisco, Seattle, or Denver, you might actually qualify for affordable housing programs. I'm not joking. There are cities where six-figure earners are eligible for housing assistance because the cost of living has become that detached from wages. Let me break down a realistic budget for someone making $100,000 in 2026, and you tell me if this doesn't feel painfully familiar. After federal taxes, state taxes where applicable, Social Security, and Medicare, you're taking home roughly $70,000 to $75,000, depending on your state. That's about $6,000 a month. Rent or mortgage in any decent-sized city is eating at least $2,000 to $2,500 of that. Health insurance and healthcare costs, another $500. Car payment, insurance, gas, and maintenance, because let's be real, most of America doesn't have reliable public transit, that's another $600 to $800 monthly. Groceries for a family have absolutely exploded. We're talking $800 to $1,000 a month easy, and that's if you're not buying organic or eating out much. Student loans for a huge percentage of millennials and Gen Z, let's call that $300 to $400 a month. Childcare, if you have kids, oh man, this one's brutal. The average cost of childcare in the United States is now over $15,000 per year per child. That's over $1,200 a month. Are you keeping track here? Because we're already at around $5,500 to $6,000, and we haven't talked about retirement savings, emergency funds, utilities, internet, phone bills, clothing, entertainment, or anything that makes life actually enjoyable. We haven't even mentioned saving for your kids' college, or that medical emergency, or the car repair that's definitely coming. This is where the math gets really dark. If you're doing everything right, saving 15% for retirement like every financial advisor tells you to, that's another $900 a month. Now you're underwater. You literally cannot afford to both live a normal life and save adequately for the future on a $100,000 salary in most American cities. And here's the psychological trap that makes this even worse. Society still treats a six-figure salary like you've made it. Your parents hear you make $100,000 and think you're rich. Your friends who make less might assume you're doing great. There's this weird guilt that comes with making good money but still struggling. You feel like you're doing something wrong, like maybe you're just bad with money, when in reality, the entire economic structure has shifted beneath your feet. This is what I call the six-figure guilt gap. You make enough that you feel like you shouldn't complain, but not enough to actually get ahead. You're stuck in this strange middle ground where you're too rich for sympathy but too broke for comfort. Now look, I want to throw out one more statistic that puts this all in perspective. According to research from Pew Research Center and Economic Policy Analysis, when you adjust for inflation and purchasing power, today's $100,000 salary has roughly the same buying power as $42,000 did in the year 2000. Let that sink in. The number got bigger, but the lifestyle got smaller. You're essentially living like someone making 42 grand a quarter century ago, except you probably have way more student debt and definitely have higher healthcare costs. So what do you actually do about this? Because I'm not just here to depress you. Here's the thing. You can't control inflation, you can't control housing prices, and you can't personally fix the healthcare system, but you can control your response to this reality. First, you need to completely recalibrate your expectations around what a $100,000 means today. It's not rich, it's not even comfortable in most places. It's baseline middle class, and the sooner you accept that, the better decisions you'll make. Stop comparing yourself to some imaginary version of what six figures should provide, and start dealing with what it actually provides. Second, you have to get absolutely ruthless about the big three: housing, transportation, and food. These are the categories where you have the most control. Can you live in a less expensive neighborhood even if it's not your dream location? Can you drive a used car instead of financing new? Can you meal prep instead of defaulting to takeout when you're tired? I know that sounds basic, but most people sabotage themselves on these big categories and then stress about $5 lattes. Third, and this is crucial, you need to increase your income, not just manage your expenses. There's only so much you can cut, but your earning potential, that's theoretically unlimited. Whether that's negotiating raises, switching jobs every few years, building side income, or developing skills that command higher pay, you cannot budget your way out of a structural wage problem. The game has changed, and you need multiple income streams to win it now. And finally, stop feeling guilty about struggling on a good salary. This isn't a personal failing. This is a systemic issue affecting millions of people who are doing everything they were told to do. The $100,000 earner of 2026 is living through one of the most financially compressed periods in modern American history. Acknowledge that reality. Talk about it with your friends. Share your actual numbers so people stop pretending everything's fine. Here's the bottom line. Earning a $100,000 doesn't mean what it used to, and pretending otherwise is keeping you stuck. The purchasing power has collapsed, the essential expenses have skyrocketed, and the American dream now requires about $250,000 to achieve what 100 grand used to buy. That's not me being dramatic, that's just math. But once you understand the game you're actually playing, instead of the game you think you should be playing, you can start making moves that actually matter. Get your expectations right, optimize the big stuff, increase your earning power, and stop apologizing for struggling when the whole economic system is rigged against the middle class. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next one.